last commandment. Oh. Hi, this is Otto Penzler at the Mysterious Bookshop in the Tribeca region of Manhattan in New York City for our weekly chat about books and authors and collecting. The author I'm going to talk about today is a very famous pulp writer whose reputation was extremely high in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, but has been somewhat neglected and forgotten in recent years. George Harman Coxe. Coxe started out as a journalist with a great interest in photography, and he has two major series characters, both of whom are photographers, Flash Gun Casey and Kent Murdoch. Coxe was a Grandmaster of the Mystery Writers of America. I think he got his Grandmaster in 1963. He started writing in the pulps in the 1930s, particularly for Black Mask. He wrote a lot of Flash Casey or Flash Gun Casey in Black Mask, and some of the best of those stories were collected in a paperback original called Flash Casey. This is published by Avon in this lovely series of Murder Mystery Monthly. They did a lot of reprints. They published Chandler in this series and Kane, but many of those were originals. Cornell Woolrich, they did an original. There were a few reprints, but mostly this series, sort of digest size, were originals, as this is. It's a paperback original. It's got 4 Flash Casey stories in it. They did go back to second printings on some, and on the copyright page they would show a second printing. This does not show it, so it's a first printing. I don't think there was a second printing of Flash Casey, but I'm just showing you the copyright page. This is not a great copy, so it's not common, but it's only $20 because the condition isn't that great. Flash Casey was a little different from Kent Murdoch. Flash Casey was big and strong and tough. He was a very tough private eye. He would get into fistfights and beat people up on a regular basis, which is what you expected in Black Mask in the 1930s, which is when he was writing those short stories. He also wrote 6 novels about Flash Casey. Kent Murdoch, on the other hand, is urbane, much more gentlemanly, not afraid of getting into a fisticuff, but it's not his first choice, whereas Flash Casey would happily beat somebody up if he thought it needed it. There were more than 20 Kent Murdoch books. One Flash Casey was made into a film in the 30s, and 2 of the Kent Murdoch books were made into films. So he was a major figure then, and he was published by Knopf. Knopf published Dashiell Hammett, then they published James M. Cain, then they published Raymond Chandler, and then they published Ross MacDonald. And during all of that time, well, I think he started in 35. I think the first book was around 1935, so doesn't go back quite as far as Hammett. But through all those years, he was being published by Knopf, a major publishing house who published really good hard-boiled fiction and became famous for it. Here's an early one. This is a lovely copy. And Knopf was always great. You could always tell a first edition from Knopf. They did not make a big secret of what they did. So this is 1943. There's the date on the copyright page, on the title page. And then on the copyright page, there's the words first edition, so you can tell. And look at the jacket for this. This is 80 years old. This is pretty great. This is 85. I think it's the most expensive book that I have. Here's some more Knopf The Uninvited Guest. And there's George Harman Cox, pretty spiffy, dressed up in his pinstriped suit. This is, again, Knopf is never hard to tell. This is 53. This is about 10 years older, but there's the first edition slug on the copyright page. And again, this is a fine copy in a fine jacket, and it's 45. Here's something interesting. I don't usually have a chance to show you both. This is a first edition of The Impetuous Mistress, published by Knopf. And again, I'll show you the copyright page. There's the usual slug that says first edition, which they did for many, many, many years. And they're one of the few houses that actually paid attention. If it was a British publisher and the book came out in England first, the copyright page would say First American Edition, whereas most publishers would simply say First Edition, even though that was not technically accurate. But what I want to show you is, so this is a first edition, and it's published by Knopf, which is an elegant publishing house, and you can see it's an all-cloth cover, so it's a well-made book. There's also a book club edition. Many times you'll see the lower corner clipped off so that it looks like a first edition, because there's nothing to indicate that it's not. But it's a Knopf book, and the book club edition does not say first edition, and it's cheaply made. You can see this is just a pressed cardboard cover. And this was common for the Mystery Guild to do pressed cardboard covers. So they're very, very inexpensively made, understandably, because the book club sold books for the Mystery Guild particularly, Literary Guild particularly, sold their books very cheaply. Book of the Month Club frequently used the publisher's sheets and their binding. And you could only tell that it was not a first edition by the lack of a price on the dust jacket. And Book of the Month Club had a system. I don't have one here because he wasn't published by Book of the Month Club, but on the back cover, Book of the Month Club would have a little indentation, either a circle or a square, which would show, even though they used the same pages and the same binding, they would use that to show that the book was, in fact, a book club edition. So here's some more. In addition to a lot of the Kent Murdoch books, this is a Flash Casey book as late as 1974. You know, we started in the 40s, now here we are in the 70s. And again, on the copyright page, a little less prominently, but there it is. There's the words first edition, so you can always tell. In addition to the Flash Caseys, and by the way, this is because it's later, probably had a slightly larger print run, not quite as rare, it's only 25, even though it's an immaculate copy. He also wrote a lot of standalones. George Harman Cox wrote about 60 books altogether. Like I said, 6 about Flash Casey, more than 20, I think 21 or 22 about Kent Murdoch, but another more than 30 that were out of series. They were standalones. But in addition to the mysteries, I'm not counting his non-mysteries, but after his Black Mask career in the 30s and a lot more pulps, he started writing for the what are known as the slicks, the higher-paying magazines like Saturday Evening Post and the American Magazine. But there he wrote war stories, sea stories, even some romances. He was a rather prolific writer in many fields. He was also heavily published in the UK. Hammond and Harmon published him. Here's a stack. These are almost all Hammonds. And also, I just want to show you, just because it's a really nice, really sharp copy in dust jacket, but this is a Grosset and Dunlap edition. the same paper as the Knopf edition. It didn't always happen, but it was common for Gossett and Dunlap to buy leftover sheets from the original publisher and then put their own dust jacket and binding on it. And of course, on the copyright page, there's no indication of first printing or any other printing, because it's a Gossett and Dunlap, which 99% of their books were reprints. So that is the wonderful pulp writer, George Harman Cox. Thanks very much for watching.